All right, so here we go, image trace. So as I mentioned, well, if we go back to the lecture when we were talking about vector versus raster images, I showed you really briefly kind of the pros and the cons of raster images versus the vector image. Raster images being that you can have much more detail in the image. There's a lot better color variation in the image, but you're limited in size of the imagery. Obviously, when raster images get much larger to the point where they become posters and giant images, the file sizes become like almost unmanageable. So that's where we come into vector images. So we're gonna quickly talk about how to turn a raster image into a vector image that can be transformed into any size that you want. So this is more of I can't say I've really had a time when I've really needed to turn a raster image into a vector for something that really mattered, besides just kind of having fun with it and making some cool art. I actually have a piece of art in my house that I made from this tool that is pretty neat. So it's kind of just a fun exploratory tool. I'll share it with you. It will likely come into handy sometime. I've used it to where I've just needed to turn something that was already a vector image at one time that was turned into a raster image that I needed to bring back to a vector, so that worked pretty well. But let's take a look. So the first thing to do is start a new Illustrator file. We'll just call this image trace. Okay, and I'm going to just do a letter is fine. Actually, let's do pixels again. Let's go over to units, pixels. Let's do 1500 by 1500. Let's make it a semi-large canvas. Okay, that looks fine, and I'll go ahead and hit OK. So we have our canvas size here. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to select the image that you want to do an image trace of. So find any actual JPEG, a PNG will work fine too, either of the two file types or any raster image type. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and place an image of a dachshund. It's the kind of dog I have, so I just thought it was kind of fun. Oh, you know what? It's not a PDF. Let's see. How am I going to do that? Oh, you know what? I did file save as. I'm sorry. File place. You're going to want to go to file place. Then you'll be able to find the JPEG. Sorry, I was like, why am I not seeing that? It's because I went to save as. So I'm going to go down to my picture here that says, what is a wiener dog? And I'm going to place this little wiener dog on my screen. Okay, so this is the image that I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this image so much. I want to put it as a giant, I want to turn it into the wallpaper in my house. Well, how would you do that? Well, you'd actually have to turn it into a vector image to be able to do it effectively. Okay, so this is my little friend here, my little dachshund, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that image. Okay, I'm going to click on that image, and I'm going to come up to the button that says Image Trace. Okay, if you click on the little drop-down menu, it's going to give you about 10 to a dozen different image trace options on what the actual final outcome will be. To give you a couple hints on what some of the outcomes will be, high fidelity photo is usually the best in terms of trying to preserve the actual image into a photo as much as possible. It usually creates a ton of colors, but they're all vector-based shapes, okay? But it's going to retain what the actual image looks like the most, okay? So if you're looking for the image to look as most like the raster image as possible, high fidelity photo is going to be your best bet, okay? Low fidelity photo usually just picks a little bit less color, okay? 3 colors, well, what 3 colors will do is it will pick 3 of the most prominent and dominant colors in the image, and it will make the entire final image only of those 3 colors. Okay, so I'll do one of each. I'll do maybe like 3 colors as like a low end example, and then high fidelity photo as kind of as the higher end image trace option. You also have shades of gray. Shades of gray will do kind of a similar thing that high fidelity photo does, but it's going to keep all of the colors grayscale. Okay. And then you have sketched art, silhouettes, line art, technical drawings. Those are some kind of just funky variations. I'll show you a few. Bear with me, as some of these will take maybe up to like a minute or so to actually perform the process. It's just mostly just picking an option and letting the computer do its thing. That's really a majority of what the tool is. So let's start with 6 colors. Okay, so I'm going to click on 6 colors. That was actually pretty quickly. So you can see here that it's turned it into basically 6 colors. Okay, you have a light green, a little bit darker green, a limer green. So you have 3 different color greens, actually 4 greens, and 3 different color browns. Okay, so that's taking the image that I just had and turning it into all these little vector-based pieces. If you can actually see here, all of these little, what kind of look like camouflage right now, these are all little vector-based patterns, okay? What you're gonna do from here is you're gonna click on that image. It's still a raster image at this point, okay? From there, you're gonna click on expand, all right? And it's gonna turn it into all these tiny little blotches of color, okay? And if you, right now, they're all grouped together. If you double click on them, you will be able to select these individually, okay? So you can see here that I can now select, all of these different colors here. If I want to change the colors, I could do that. It definitely will take a little bit of time depending on how much of the selections that you do. This probably wouldn't take too much time, as most of these are fairly large blotches of color. But you can see here that now you have a vector image. All right, I can hit escape and I can come back and I can make this image as small or as large as I want to, and it won't affect the image whatsoever. Okay, so that's going to be the 6 color image trace option. Let me backtrack a little bit and let's try something a little bit different. Let's go up to image trace and let's try 3 colors. You can see here that it's much more, I guess you could probably say it's much more Charlie Harper-like. Okay, there's very few colors, but you still see some details and some little patterns. Ultimately, whatever the result of that you're ultimately looking for, it's kind of a trial and error process. There's not really a way of predicting what it's going to do there's not really a way of predicting what the final outcome might be. But once you do maybe one of each, you'll get an idea of kind of what the general results are of that particular image trace. But the nice thing about it is that you can turn it into a vector image. You can go and manipulate the colors as soon as you're finished, and you can kind of have some fun creating some kind of cool little art pieces. So what you'll need to do today for exercise 19 is you'll need to select an image. You'll need to go through the image trace process. I don't care what process you go through, but pick an outcome that you find enjoyable and that you think it looks good. Spend a little time modifying the colors a little bit, maybe make it a little bit funky, and then go ahead and submit that as the exercise. Okay, it shouldn't take more than about 15-20 minutes or so. Yeah?
I was messing with some of the effects on the flower stencil. I saw they were under Photoshop. How would I convert some of those into vector?
Turning some of the...
After you've applied the Photoshop effect and changed it to raster,
you want to apply the
effect and then switch it back to vector.
You want to apply the effect. You want the effect to be a vector file. Well, the effect is a vector file. So, well, I guess I take that back. You really can't manipulate. Like, you can't just select the effect. So let's look at it though in just a few minutes, and maybe you could just, I'm not sure, I'm entirely sure what you're talking about, but let's look at it and we'll find a solution. So I'll just do one more. I'm going to go over to maybe sketched art. Let's see what that does. You can see that's kind of interesting, but you can have some fairly interesting outcomes with some of these options. So again, as soon as after you finish the actual tracing, you're going to go over to and click on expand, and then from there you have a grouped vector image to which you can double click on, and you can start to select some of those different colors. Okay, so maybe I want this to not be black, and I want it to be lime green. Oops, chose gray. Oh no, this actual image trace is actually a black and white image, but you start to see the point there. Okay, so any questions about the image trace? Pretty easy stuff.
If you select would change the color. Doesn't change the color
for all of them.
Shapes.
No, it.
You highlight a shape and then you can change the color.
Yes.
Individually.
Yes. Ideally, for it to become fairly easy, you don't want something that has 50,000 blotches of color. I would it works better for some of the more simpler options. Ideally, for like something like high fidelity photo, when it's going to resemble the photo the most, you're doing that because you actually want to retain the original photo as much as possible. Okay, so you can see here, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I'll do high fidelity photo really quickly. So image trace, high fidelity photo. This will probably take the most time. So you can see here, that's high fidelity photo. You can barely even tell the difference between the original photo and the actual vector image. But if you were to expand it, you would see that you have literally thousands of blocks of color in that image. So if your intention is to change and manipulate colors, pick one of the more simpler option like 3 or 6 color, where you can actually go through and select the blocks of color fairly easily. Otherwise, you'll be there for an eternity. I think there's actually a way to select all of one color. I have to refresh my memory on how to do that. As soon as I remember, I will share it with you in a few minutes. So any keyword is image trace, which is just the tool that we just finished. So image trace. So I'll upload this to the assignment so that for those that just walked in will know how to do this particular assignment. So black, let's see, technical drawing. This one usually is kind of goofy. Yeah, that's not very technical. That's not even really, there's always one or two that literally make no sense. So if you get one of those, just backtrack, try again. Some of them have really good results all the time, some of them not so much, but it's kind of a fun little exercise. Let's see, shades of gray. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so go ahead and get started on the work. That will be it for today. That should keep you busy. If you have questions about portfolios, come talk to me. If you want to talk about your current portfolio, come talk to me. Otherwise, use today to get caught up on the work. Since you just walked in, we're not going to talk about AutoCAD today. We're going to wait till Monday. So use the time to either finish your Charlie Harper. I'll extend the deadline till the end of class, or work on your architectural diagrams. And this, what we just talked about, will be exercise 19. So you'll see the video on Canvas in a little bit, and you can get caught up.